Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tempe City Council work study session. Item number 1 is call to order. Council meetings can be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. Members of the public may also attend the meeting virtually through Microsoft Teams. Guidelines for conduct at City Council meetings are on the table near the entrance for those in attendance at tonight's meeting. We will now play a video with the proper protocol for ensuring the appropriate conduct at City Council meetings.
The City of Tempe welcomes public comment at this time. Disruptive behavior will not be allowed. Continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. We need to be able to hear everyone in the room. Behavior that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of any city council meeting is not helpful and is not permitted. This includes behavior both inside and outside of the council chambers. Should individuals inside the council chambers become disruptive so that city business is not able to be conducted, the mayor will first ask that the individuals allow city business to be completed. There will be time for public comment during the call to the audience portion of the meeting. If no cooperation, the mayor will issue a verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is still no cooperation, the mayor will issue a second verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is no cooperation after asking and 2 verbal warnings, then the mayor will ask security officers to remove only those individuals who are causing the disruption. Security personnel should not engage in any way, but only escort them from the council chambers. If individuals refuse to leave, security personnel shall warn them that they are trespassing and that the next step will be arrest by a Tempe police officer. Tempe officers may have to arrest if individuals refuse to leave. Charges for trespass and disorderly conduct may apply, as well as other charges. Should anyone be asked to be removed, the mayor will recess the meeting.
Thank you so much. Item number 2 is call to the audience. The City Council welcomes public comment at this time for the issue review session and committee of the whole items on this work study session agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. I have 1 speaker signed up this evening. It's David Sokolowski, and I know he's going to be virtual this evening. Madam Clerk.
You may unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, hi. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is David Sokolowski. I live in Tempe. We need to invest in affordable housing to prevent Tempe from falling into a death spiral. The city is spending millions on homeless services, more than we spend on affordable housing. The rents continue to increase each year, and vacant land is disappearing from the city. We should all be able to see the red flags now, and we need to take emergency action before the rents double again. Housing is the foundation of our community, and it's connected to every aspect of city life. Our investments in affordable housing will improve public health, reduce crime, grow the economy, and help Tempe retain employees. The cities that provide the most affordable housing will be more resilient in the long term. People need opportunities to purchase a home or a condo. That's the best way to attract good people to our city like teachers and firefighters. We are truly in a housing crisis, and no solution is too big or too small. We can see what failure looks like in other cities, and failure isn't an option for us. We need to mass produce housing at a scale that is appropriate for the size of our problem. Tempe needs a comprehensive affordable housing plan, and we need to stop looking at housing as just one development project. Tempe has the PQI down to a science, but Tempe's affordable housing plan doesn't have a map or a cost estimate or a timeline, and we certainly don't have money. Tempe should be building 100 low-income units every 30 days, and it requires bold leadership. I think we need more than 30 million. We don't want to be like other cities that did too little, too late. Durham, North Carolina invested nearly 200 million in affordable housing. This is an opportunity for you to put our city on the right path, and opportunities like this are rare. This is the kind of investment that will continue to provide benefits to the city for decades. This could literally be your legacy as council members. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, that was the only speaker card I had signed up in advance. Is there anyone else wishing to address the City Council on any of these items? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I will close that portion of the meeting and move to item number 3, which is our issue review session portion. And first up is item 3A, an independent evaluation of Tempe Pre, teacher and family experiences and its impact on students. Oh, there we go.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am Marie Raymond, manager for our Office of Education, Career, and Family Services in our Community Health and Human Services Department. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide Mayor and Council with findings and lessons learned from an independent evaluation of Tempe Pre. As you know, Tempe was the first city in Arizona to publicly fund preschool access, particularly for our most vulnerable families. This created interest statewide, and the Helios Education Foundation generously committed their funds to support an evaluation of the program to help inform both locally and nationally about the impacts of a city-funded preschool program. And I want to recognize Kelly Kernick from Helios, who is joining us today. I also want to recognize our Tempe Pre-team. I get to stand up here and present to you about our work, but these 3 individuals make this program run every day by supporting our children, our families, and our teaching staff. So we have Tempe Pre-Supervisor Alicia Tunstall, Tempe Pre-Coordinator Catalina Martinez, and Tempe Pre-Education Specialist Winona Miller. They're back there. And so now at this time, I'm pleased to introduce Stacy Lowy and Mark Hernandez from NORC at the University of Chicago, who will present their findings.
Thank you, Marie. All right, let me see if I can advance with clicker is going to do it for me. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Hernandez from NORC, and I will be starting off the presentation today and then handing it off to Stacy to share the results of the evaluation with you. But to start, I just want to introduce us quickly. We are from NORC at the University of Chicago. NORC is an independent, nonpartisan research organization affiliated with the University of Chicago, based in Chicago and Washington, D.C. This project, as Marie noted, has been funded by the Helios Education Foundation since 2018, early on in the development and implementation of the Tempe Pre program. Along the way, we've also been collaborating closely with both the City of Tempe and Marie and her team, as well as Tempe Elementary School District, to both design and implement the study, as well as share and build upon study findings. So one of the goals here was to estimate the impacts of this program on children, but also to provide feedback about how to continually improve the program. And we've been really happy to be able to see the benefits of that over time. So to set the context for Tempe Pre, so that we're all on the same page, back in 2015, the City of Tempe commissioned a feasibility study to explore the use of pay-for-success models to fund a new preschool program. As part of that study, they found that 1 in 3 3- and 4-year-old Tempe children were enrolled in a preschool program in the city, meaning that 2 and 3 were not enrolled in a pre-K program, showing need for such a program. In addition, the feasibility study found that according to the dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills next assessment, or DIBELS Next, 64% of Tempe students were not reaching reading benchmarks upon entry to kindergarten. So the majority were not ready for kindergarten and reading. And then later on, at 3rd grade, 58% of children were not meeting benchmarks on the 3rd grade AZ Merit Reading and Language Arts Assessment. Finally, similar to other cities in Arizona, Tempe has a high level of poverty, with 75% of eligible students eligible for free or reduced price lunch. And the more recent data about Tempe indicates that almost 20% live below the poverty line, and the median household income is lower than both the state and national averages. So all of this context was set to say that there was a great need within the community for a high-quality preschool program like Tempe Pre. And so Tempe Pre was developed and designed to be a high-quality preschool program that would create more opportunity for children in Tempe. This graphic shows the key components to the Tempe Pre program, which comprise a high-quality program. And starting with the yellow part of the circle and going clockwise, One of the key components to start was the training and use of an evidence-based curricula and assessments for teachers. After a thorough review, the curriculum chosen was the high-scope curriculum, which has a very strong evidence base in the literature of it being effective in terms of producing better outcomes for kids, as well as the Teaching Strategies Gold Observational Assessment, which provides ongoing data to inform instruction in the classroom. Next, the program would have access to Quality First, Arizona's QIRS, which includes coaching, mental health consultation, and the use of quality classroom assessments for teachers. In this instance, the Eckers and CLASS nationally recognized assessments of classroom quality. The classrooms would be staffed by certified lead teachers with early childhood endorsements, as well as have instructional assistants to help implement the program. It would include the use of a kindergarten entry assessment that was aligned with Tempe Pre's goals. This is a full day program as opposed to part day, so that the kids being there all day, they would be provided with healthy meals and snacks for the students throughout the day. And then finally, and very importantly, families would be provided with before and after school care as well as summer care for those who qualified. This program, while a preschool program and intended to produce better outcomes for kids academically and social emotionally, also was designed to provide opportunity for families so that the parents could achieve greater economic outcomes for themselves through getting advanced degrees, GEDs, and being able to work outside the home. So this was an important aspect of the program. Given this program, the hypothesis was that if children attended Tempe Pre, we would have better kindergarten readiness among those that attended, particularly through the implementation of the high-scope curriculum alongside those other components. Now, I am emphasizing the high-scope curriculum because it does underpin the approach to instruction within this program. And so to say a little bit about what high scope is, you understand what was happening and is happening in the classrooms with these kids. High scope curriculum emphasizes active learning on the part of the children, their own ability for agency and choice in what and how they learn their skills in classroom, social emotional skill development, particularly the development of oral language and conversation and using language and conversation to constructively resolve conflicts among their peers. So really these are foundational skills that are necessary for kids to thrive in school. Next, moving to the right, if children participate in this type of programming, the expected outcomes were twofold. One was, as I've mentioned, that they would be more ready at kindergarten entry, but also that having set that foundation in preschool, that during the kindergarten year, that by the end of kindergarten, that they would be achieving expected growth targets for language, literacy, math, and social emotional skills. This being an evaluation, we chose to measure these two components to the program. One, the implementation of the program. So were the Tempe Pre staff implementing the program as expected? And that was a fidelity of implementation assessment where we did classroom observations, talked to teachers, talked to principals, talked to Tempe Pre staff members, as well as families. And then for the outcomes, we conducted two measures on children. One was the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test, or PPVT-5. This is a measure of receptive language, oral language. We chose this outcome. It's very important because oral language is a very strong predictor of later academic success. And one of the primary goals, as you saw in those earlier slides about the need for this program, was to help improve reading comprehension by third grade. And reading comprehension was really underpinned by language and vocabulary. So that was our academic skill measure. And then we also had teachers fill out the emotion regulation checklist, which assessed social emotional skill development. So in the study itself, before we get to the results, to evaluate the causal impact of Tempe Pre on student outcomes, we designed a randomized control trial, or an RCT. The RCTs are the gold standard evaluation designed to assess program impact. Not always the easiest or feasible to implement, but this time it was, because the program, there were more families applying for the Tempe Pre program than there were slots available. That is to say that there was a greater need for the Tempe Pre program than the program could meet. So a fair way of allotting slots to Tempe Pre was to create a lottery where we randomly assign kids to be invited to enroll in the program or those who were not. In regard to who was included in the study, we focused on families who applied to Tempe Pre and were eligible to receive full or partial tuition coverage. Now, the program today does have a full tuition component to it, but at the time earlier on, during the pilot, the program focused on families who had the greatest economic need and those who we believed it was most important to focus on, to understand how the city was providing high-quality preschool to families most in need. Of note, we compared those who were offered a slot in the program to those who were not. And as regards that group that did not participate in Tempe Pre, we really don't know too much about what they experienced. We've done a little bit of digging into the Tempe L data on those kids in kindergarten and know about a third of the kids in the control group did participate in the district's program, not pre-K program, not Tempe Pre. But that the other 2/3 we really don't know. So it's likely a mix of, some attended other maybe community-based programs and many probably did not, particularly given the feasibility study saying that only about a third of kids have access to the early childhood programming. So as noted on previous slides, we collected high-quality data on students' vocabulary and social-emotional skills at both the beginning and end of kindergarten school year. And I will now turn over the presentation to my colleague Stacy, who will share with you what we learned from the study and the positive impact that Tempe Pre had on students who had the opportunity to participate.
So I am realizing, before I start, that we had a PowerPoint that had some animation, which included some white boxes that disappear when you are doing it through PowerPoint. And this has been turned into a PDF version, I believe, which means we may have to visualize some of what it is that I am about to say. But we will certainly make sure that you have the full pictures. So I want to start with the PPVT, the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test. As Mark mentioned, it is a nationally normed assessment of receptive vocabulary where a child is shown 4 pictures, a word is said to them, and they are asked to point to the picture that represents the word that they are hearing. So they do not produce language to do that. They need to understand what the word means and make sense of the pictures enough to match the picture with the word. Nationally, a child with a score of 100 is at the 50th percentile compared to all of their peers across the country of the same age. So they're right in the middle of the pack. Over time, if you were to assess a child or a student multiple times, their score tends to not move that much because often children stay within the same relative position to their peers. So if you do see scores going up over time, that actually does mean that they are learning faster than their peers. And that ends up being really important here. The standard deviation around that 50th percentile is 15 points, so you do often see many children falling in that range between 85, that 15 points below 100, up to the 115 range when you're above. So starting in the fall of kindergarten, these numbers that you're seeing here are coming from some models that are looking at Tempe Pre, students who had attended Tempe Pre the prior year compared to what we call the control group, or those who had applied to Tempe Pre but were not offered a spot. The purple upper number is 89.9. That was the score, the average score for Tempe Pre students, former Tempe Pre students, compared to 88.2 in the control group. This is where I'm really sad you're not going to see the next one. But if I were to click on the PowerPoint, you would actually see both of those scores go up by the spring, which is really great for Tempe L, for the school district. So their kindergarten students are growing at a faster rate than their same-aged peers over that period of time. But we actually saw that Tempe Pre students grew more. So their scores ended up at about a 95 point something, and I am totally doing this from memory. I believe that the control group was around 91, 92 was their score. So those Tempe Pre students grew more than their control group students. All right. Another way to look at how those students were doing on the PPVT, this is the spring scores, is to just look at the distribution and look at the percentage of students who are meeting or exceeding expectations for their age. On the left, you can see the Tempe Pre breakdown, and you have 8% of children in that Tempe Pre group who are actually scoring above expected. And there were none of the children in the control group who fell into that group. Otherwise, the two groups didn't look that much different, but those students who are above expected is probably what's pushing up those scores for those Tempe pre-students on average in the spring. Turning to the emotional regulation checklist, that was a set of items that teachers rated students on. So these were kindergarten teachers rating individual students, some of whom had attended Tempe Pre and some of whom had not, on their social and emotional skills. The scoring of this tool was a bit more complex, but just generally speaking, if the scores were positive, it meant that students had ratings that indicated more emotional regulation. If the scores were more negative, that meant that those students were receiving ratings that indicated more challenging behaviors or less emotional regulation. The Tempe Pre students start here a little bit above their control group peers. What happens in the spring is that, again, they both go up. The Tempe Pre students improve a little bit. In this case, the control group students start to kind of catch up to those former Tempe Pre students. They don't quite reach them, but you can imagine if that control group has some students who had not been in any kind of formal education setting before, one of the things that they're learning in their kindergarten year is actually how to manage their emotions in the classroom during that year. So again, a different way to look at this is to take a look at actually individual items on the ERC. I think this is how we make the best sense of it. So we pulled out 2 items. Here, the first one read, can recover quickly from episodes of upset or distress. And teachers are rating individual students from almost always being able to do this to never. And you'll see on the bottom of the graphs look pretty similar in terms of how many students in the 2 groups were rated as almost always being able to recover quickly. But if you look towards the top of the graph, there were many more Tempe Pre students who received a rating of often being able to recover quickly from these episodes, while more control group students received a rating of sometimes. In the second graph, unfortunately, which we can't pull up, we would be looking at an item that says, can say when he or she is feeling sad, angry or mad, fearful or afraid. So really we're looking at using language to be able to express their emotions, which is something that was really worked on a lot in those Tempe Pre classrooms. On the bottom of the imaginary graphs here, we would see that over 40% of Tempe Pre students were rated as almost always being able to use language to express these emotions, compared to about 20% of the control group students. On the other portion of that graph, the top of the graph, we would have seen that Tempe Pre students were much less likely to be rated as sometimes or never being able to express those emotions verbally, compared to about 30% of the control group students. So you can start to see how that's quite different. And this was upon entry into kindergarten. As noted earlier, we did conduct classroom observations. We held teacher and principal interviews. We also interviewed parents, a set of parents. And we did this twice in the 2018-19 school year and again in the spring of 2022. And I just want to quickly highlight some of the successes and areas for ongoing improvement for the program. Some of the successes are really around everyone feeling like there's an impression that Tempe Pre is preparing children for kindergarten. So we're starting to see the evidence in our data here, but these were in interviews even before we had the chance to collect these data. Teachers, principals, parents expressing that to us. We saw a high degree of fidelity of implementation to the high school curriculum, meaning that teachers were really implementing the curriculum as intended. So we didn't share any of those particular findings today, but being in those classrooms, we can quantify that they're actually following the high school curriculum and actually working with children the way the curriculum intended. There's a really strong sense of community amongst Tempe Pre staff with the families. We hear this on both sides from the teachers as well as from the families. Over time, there's been an improved integration of Tempe Pre into the broader school community. This did take time. When you first started, you're talking about a city-run program that is placed inside of the schools, and there's been a lot of work done to build that community together. Ongoing streamlined communication between the schools and the district level administrators, and financial and logistical benefits to families, which we'll see a quote about in a moment. just highlighting a couple of areas for ongoing improvement. One area is around principals learning more about the early childhood learning environment so that they can better support those teachers at that level. Also working on creating more space and time for teachers between the pre-K teachers, the Tempe pre-teachers and kindergarten teachers to be coming together and understanding what each is doing and expecting of children as they're transitioning from Tempe pre to kindergarten. The third bullet is really around COVID, because we were talking to people in spring of 2022. So a lot of talking about staffing shortages and challenges that were related to COVID. And overall ongoing training on helping teachers continue to integrate academic instruction into a very student-led learning environment. At a high level, we just feel like there's some key learnings for folks across the country based on what has occurred here in Tempe. One is to really consider that alignment between preschool and kindergarten. There are different philosophies. This exists all over the place. When you're thinking about child-directed learning, that may not always be consistent with what kindergarten teachers are thinking is the way to implement instruction. And so really starting to think about how to bridge those two perspectives on child development and instructional practices. The second is just considering how structural decisions can better support stronger cross-grade collaboration and alignment. Again, this preschool, kindergarten kindergarten teachers coming together. Sometimes things as simple, not simple as the schedule of the day throughout the school day needs to be sort of looked at and tried to work with in order to bring those two sets of educators together. The third is setting clear expectations for roles and responsibilities for integrating preschool into existing school communities. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there were questions sometimes from staff that we would hear early on in our projects, like who is in charge? Who do I go to if I have some challenging behaviors in my classroom? Do I go to someone at Tempe Pre? Do I go to my principal? The principal's not sure. Do I go to the city? Do I go within the district? There has been so much work done over time between the city and the district to really work on that and implement changes, putting staff within the district that are really focusing on Tempe Pre that has really strengthened the supports that teachers and principals have been getting. And that continues to happen, that collaboration. So I just want to leave you with a couple of quotes from folks that we had heard from. One principal saying, there's a difference between the kids who've been in Tempe Pre or one of the other preschool programs that we work with versus kids who've just been in daycare. For the most part, it's pretty noticeable and the teachers can tell. So this is when they're entering kindergarten. We have a quote from a parent who talked about how they would not have been able to obtain a stable job, an apartment, if their daughter had not been enrolled in Tempe Pre. And finally, a teacher who I think really, really captured what this meant for families. Parents are also getting their education, they're going to work, they're doing what they need to do to be a provider for their children as well. So I feel like it's impacting huge, huge things. I've had parents that have graduated from school. I've had parents that have gotten their GED. I've had parents that get excited because they've got visas. So hearing these stories, while those kids are here in our care and learning environment, those parents are able to do that. So I feel it's huge. It's a huge success and a win for us for that reason. And on that note.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I've got a couple of questions from the council. First off, Councilmember Hodge and then Councilmember DeBarro.
First off, thank you so much for the presentation. It really helps to put it all together. I spent a lot of time with Tempe Pre. I know you guys, they all know that. I spend a lot of time. I go there quarterly and I read and talk to the kids, get to know the teachers and the principals, so you're absolutely right. One of my questions is, when Mayor Woods and I, we went to a presentation, we went to a conference, and part of the conference is they were breaking down what's happening with our kids in high school, and knowing that we have to go back down to preschool, but they broke it down by demographics. They broke it down by race issue, and we found out there that even though when you put it in a big hub like this, it looks good, But when you break it down by demographics, then you start to see the breakdowns within the communities when it comes to like our Native American, our African American, or Hispanic kids are always at the bottom. So my question to you is, I would like to know the data of that, because I need to take that back to the high schools and we need to bring that together, because this is the only way we're going to actually fix the problem is to do the breakdown. And we need to see those demographics, because I love the fact that we have all this information. It is great, but we're not really helping the cause of the fix if we can't fix the problem of the areas that we need to fix. And that's something that we need to see that breakdown a little bit more into. So I was wondering, can we break it down just a tad bit more into it?
Yeah, so we do have demographic information on children. The numbers get quite small.
Yes.
So from a research perspective, we have to be careful because we need to protect the privacy of the individuals that are involved in the study. But to the extent that we can do that, we could take a look back and see where we have large enough numbers to be able to do that and bring that back to you.
Yes.
The other thing that I would say is that the children that were included in this study, Tempe Pre was originally designed to provide full tuition to families who qualified for that, lived in Tempe and had an income below a particular level. That has changed over time, as you all know, where some families have full tuition covered for them, some partial tuition, and some pay their own full tuition. Those who pay their own full tuition are not included in our study. So we actually are focusing on those families who had from the beginning exhibited more need. And we think that's actually really important to be able to, again, kind of like hone in on a particular subset of students who are in the program.
Thank you. That's very important in an initiative. Like, I'm just, because I'm going through this with education. It's just,
Yeah.
it's all there. And I know it starts in pre-K. I know it starts in pre-K. And I've been preaching this from day one, if we don't. I just want to give a shout out to my pre-K team. They are phenomenal and awesome. And if you get a chance to be with them for one day, you will understand why we're so successful. They know those kids in and out, teachers, principals. I'm so proud and honored when I walk around with them and they can tell me everything about most of the kids I walk to. So just want to say that out. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. Obviously, you're passionate. I know this is dear and dear. I just have to say, this was a program that was started years ago. Me and Shapira, I don't know who else. I know we all support it. And it was a touchy program at the beginning because it was the debate of the city taking on education, schools should take on education. How does this work? Who's going to pay for it? How's it going to get funded? A lot of questions. And we worked through those problems with, getting, grant funding and getting other funding from other places and then having the city kind of helping out and fill the gaps. And it was one of those challenges, even for me. I absolutely know this program has success. Absolutely know you're going to make a difference with the kids, especially at a young age. That was part of my 1P. I know that we had a lot of say in this, is the quality of the program has to be premier. The quality of the program has to be successful. And I was going this with my kids because I was going to pre-Ks all across and, I was dumping in cash and it was killing me, but I knew that the quality of program, and my mom was on my butt to make sure we were going to the right schools. So I went to ASU's pre-K, I've been to Montessori pre-K. So I know the value of quality education and the success from that. And that's what's so important, is to make sure that quality stays there. And I love the fact that you're tracking the success and you're also tracking the things we have to work on, because that's exactly what I want to continue on doing. This has to be successful all the time. We can't just be satisfied. We got there, we're doing good, we're doing some great things. No. We have to be successful all the time. When I was at NLC a couple of years ago, people were wondering, hey, we have a problem. We have pre-K, and we're talking about things like drug addiction, homelessness, all these things. But you know what helps at the very beginning is this. This is the thing that helps with homelessness. with help with drug addiction, with help with housing, with help with success in their life. This does. And the fact that we're tracking, and thank you for doing that, because that was one of the big things, is the parents getting their GEDs, getting their education, getting a job, doing these things. The health behind that is huge. Getting away from the home, the health behind that is huge. And then when they come back to home, the health is even better because those things are not a problem anymore. Having to wonder if they're going to get the next meal and all these other stresses that come in with life. So that's a huge success in our community. And the fact that we do a tier system, the fact that we have the ability to give free pre-K or halfway or the full pay. And the thing is, the quality does not separate. And I love that. I love what you guys are doing. Maria, this has been a great success. I mean, you know, you're shepherding this whole thing, but it's just, I love what we're doing. This is why back then we had to start off in little increments, because the success now is we now take care of it, right? The city takes care of it. Where before that was the challenge, and that was the challenge with the community, because this was a big deal. Well, why are you guys doing this, you know, and all this other stuff. Now they see the data. Now they see the success. That's now buy-in. That's huge. And that's what communities need. And that's what people need. And that needs to be advertised. So I love what we're doing. Thank you guys. Continue on. Continue making it better. Thank you guys back there, because you guys are the ones that make it better. Honestly, you guys are the ones that do this. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Hodge, Councilmember Burdetta. Thank you, and thank you in the back. The Tempe Pre, this is an interesting program to me, like just personally, right? Like a lot of you weren't here, but as the Councilmember Navarro mentioned, this was some high drama in 2016, maybe late 2016. I think it was November of 2016, and I'll tell you why. Because I go on a family trip to Las Vegas for Thanksgiving every year. And I had to call in for this vote because it was going to be a 4-3 vote and I was a swing vote. And this was before we had the virtual stuff. This, like, you're just on a speaker in the middle of, we had a table here at the time. So it's hard to follow the conversation. It's hard to follow what's happening. I actually was on the phone running back to my room and tripped and it fell and the whole world heard it. So it was definitely an interesting experience. And I'll tell you, at the time when this was originally brought forward as Councilmember Navarro mentioned, former Councilmember Shapira. At the time when I was calling in to support this program, one, I was very nervous about it because, again, it was a big deal and I was a new council member. Two, I had no idea how big and how important this would become for our city. At the time, it was just like, all right, we're gonna have a pre-K program, and look, we all believe in early childhood education. But as I said at our forum yesterday, a candidate forum, early childhood education is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the benefits to the community. The parents are able to work more hours. Both parents are now able to work, go back to school, as you mentioned. It's just every aspect of this program uplifts those in the city who need it the most. And that's something I think is often lost when we talk about pre-K. So I'm thrilled to see whenever we get a presentation that that's something that we always hammer home, that this makes a huge and measurable difference to families. And I think there's something that would be interesting to see too is how many of these families were on some sort of government assistance that are now able to get off it because they're working more. Childhood, what's it called when people watch your kid? Child care. Yeah. Councilmember Hodge is doing a great job with child care.
Put him down on the ground.
No,
That's horrible.
I've been doing this job for almost 12 years, and that was still one of the most interesting exchanges I've ever seen while sitting up here. But go on.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I mean, that's how expensive childcare is. She has to have this baby on the floor. It's ridiculous. Anyway. Kudos to you in the back, to all the teachers, to Marie, who has been here from the beginning, Naomi Farrell, who's not here with us anymore, who made this program start from what was supposed to be a one-off expenditure and a pilot to see what we could do to now a permanent fixture of our budget. And I'm so thrilled to see this. And one more thing about the forum last night, I was asked, what are the two most things you are most proud of in your time on council? And Tempe Pre was one of them. And that says a lot again from at the time, I didn't realize the ramifications of that vote and what it would bring to the city. And I'm just so incredibly proud of the work that you are doing, Marie, your staff. You guys are making a positive difference in people's lives. So thank you for this presentation. And I look forward to continually getting updates and hearing from you all, because this is something I think the entire council can celebrate and hold up high. So that's on you guys. We just vote. Thank you.
Sound. Yes, please.
We could note something that we did not note earlier, which is two things maybe. One is that you all made a choice in creating this program, and obviously it's a costly choice, but a very good one, obviously, to choose quality, to choose full day, and to provide that resource on either side of in school. So having that before and after care, which enable parents to be able to do those things. We do research across the country, and this is one of the problems that ends up, if you just focus only on the child, you're starting to get debates, well, how little can we give to be able to produce the outcomes we want for the kids? And that's a different kind of approach than saying, well, how do we lift up a family? And to do that, you need to be able to do something like, you need to do what Tempe Pre is doing. And so that is not an easy choice, but you guys, you're seeing that in these results. And we think we're really excited to hear from the families, like that family-wide impact. And then two, in terms of the program itself, we have noticed, and we continue to try to figure out how this is happening, that this program has exceptionally low staff turnover. If you're aware, in the early childhood, there is a serious workforce crisis in terms of getting enough adults in the room to care for kids, let alone those who are, have the qualifications and the training that your teachers do. Very low turnover. And so we want to understand what it is that's happening here that's producing that. I mean, so far all we've heard is we love the kids. Well, everyone loves the kids. Every early childhood loves kids. There's something that's keeping them here. And so that is something we're going to ask. We have a teacher meeting tomorrow night. That's our last meeting here in Tempe, and we're going to try to dig into that a little bit more.
Councilmember Hodge?
I have a thought on that. It's because of the staff they have, the support. If you were to walk into those classrooms and you see the support of the people who walk in from the city of Tempe, I'm not even talking about Tempe Elementary School. I'm talking about city of Tempe itself. How they walk in there, how they love those kids, how they pick those kids up, how they know everything about those teachers' families, their lives, everything about them. You will understand why they stay, because I've seen it with my own eyes, how well our staff brings that together. So I got to give that credit to them. Thank you so much.
And we do see that.
We do. I was going to say, as someone who has been in these classrooms, I completely agree with that. We want the teachers to say that, right?
Excellent. Sounds good. Council, any other further comments or questions?
Great job. Great job.
Great.
Thank you
No,
very
wonderful.
much for having
Thank you.
us.
Great job. Absolutely. All right, that brings us to item 3B, Mill Avenue Streetscape, University Drive to Rio Salado Parkway. Eric and Shelley. We're back. Long time no see, I know, seriously.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Shelley Seiler, Interim Engineering and Transportation Director.
I'm Eric Iverson, the Sustainability and Resilience Director.
So we are happy to present to you the last design update for the Mill Avenue Refresh Project. We know it's been a bit of an adventure, and we will be receiving the 100% design package next week. As always, we like to highlight the council priorities that this project will advance, so you can see those on the screen. As far as what we'll be covering tonight, the project history and overview, the planting and hardscape design updates that you all had input into, and then our timeline and next steps. So we all know Mill Avenue, this project really started as an infrastructure project. The electrical and irrigation needs to be upgraded, but it also gave us the opportunity to look at other elements like the sidewalks, including ADA improvements, sustainable practices with the Silva cells, updating the tree canopy and diversifying it, adding shade and seating, really enhancing the public space, and then celebrating the history, arts, and culture of Tempe. We had or did a lot of public outreach, stakeholders like DTA, Tempe Tourism, the downtown businesses, really getting their feedback. We worked on this as a multi-departmental approach. We took it on the Tempe Business Roadshow. We really worked with DTA to get the thoughts and feelings of the downtown merchants to make sure that we were incorporating what they felt was important in the project. Direct outreach, social media. I'm sure you've all seen the social media that's occurred. We did do 3 public meetings in the summer and fall of 2023. Eric and I presented at 10 boards and commissions, and we did an online survey in July and August as well. And then finally, we've concluded the process with an open house in January. So as you know, the project limits are on Mill Avenue between Rio Salado and University, and I'll turn it over to Eric to cover some of those design elements.
Thanks, Shelley. So want to review a little bit of some of the aesthetic and design decisions that you all supported and made direction on after all of our public processes last fall. One of the things that was a big item that folks commented on is the history of Tempe, and obviously this being, if not our most important street, one of the most important places in our community, and really where it all started for Tempe. Time that dates well before any of us. So one of the things we heard is that, hey, let's tell the whole story of Tempe. Every community that's been here and continues to be here, as well as present day. So really, the images you see here is a lot of what we drew upon when we were looking at the design of the street and some of the aesthetic elements, especially some of the history elements that we'll get into later on in the presentation. So just want to make sure that you all are aware, the community is aware that we did hear that. Really great feedback. We can't do everything for everyone, but we're trying to with this project. And so really important image here. And then last fall, as Shelley mentioned, we had a very robust public involvement and landed on some design treatments that you all supported, again, in the October-November timeframe. So what we're looking at here is an aerial view, kind of overhead view of Mill Avenue on a typical section, this one being between 4th and 5th Street on Mill Avenue. So a couple things to point out. Trees are roughly going to be in the same, they will be, except for a couple of examples, in the same spot that you have them out there today. So the tree grates, the tree locations are the same. You can see that here. The red brick that everyone's familiar with, that has been the historic treatment since the 80s, that was well received by the community and the council. So we are continuing with the red brick theme on Mill Avenue as we go forward. Again, this will be new bricks. Stronger bricks, better install. But then at the intersections, we're integrating in a concrete unit paver, a grayer kind of contemporary paver, a little bit different size than the red brick, to give it some accent, kind of celebrate the new era that Mill Avenue, the new design era of Mill Avenue. So that's kind of the overview on that particular slide. And then a little bit, next couple slides are close up. So you can see here the intersection of 5th and Mill. In front of the very familiar Starbucks there. You can see the concrete unit pavers that are at the intersection there, the red brick that's on the length of the street and the distance there, the location of the trees. A couple things to note out here. Where we can at intersections, we're what we call bulbing it out or creating a larger pedestrian zone. So you can kind of see that demarcated here. If you look where the on-street parking is, we kind of, at those locations where we can, we're creating more pedestrian zone, a little bit more space for hanging out, experiencing the street, seating, landscaping, those types of opportunities. So also a couple things to note here, the plaques that you're all familiar with that celebrate local artists like Walt Richardson and some historic structures that maybe aren't here anymore, like Long Wong's, as well as at this intersection, Fackler Square. Those will remain. We'll have to take them out for the construction, but those will come back to Mill Avenue. That story that you all have supported over the years will continue on Mill Avenue. So you see that there. And then finally on here, just want to mention, we're telling the story of the history of Tempe. So what we call lithomosaic, the image of the Mill Avenue Bridge, you can see kind of on the corner there. At every intersection, all 4 corners, we're going to have those images. We have a slide later to kind of show you what those look like. Oh, one final point on the last one. This is, you all supported, we just want to note the all pedestrian phase intersection. So the striping here, this may not be exactly what it looks like, but that's incorporated into the project as well. And another close-up detail. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Is that curbing, is it just, is it kind of downgraded? Is it actually, you know what I'm saying?
There's ramps.
Smoothed into it? It's not a curb.
No. It's a blended transition,
Nice.
so the entire area will be at the street level, and then it will ramp up to curb height as you get around the corner. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
And those look like not ficus.
Generic looking tree, but we'll get into the tree
That's fine.
selection.
It doesn't, yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, for visual only. But yeah, the ramps, it is important to note we are doing some ADA work. In fact, we were out in the rain this afternoon looking at the intersection to make sure that we're getting it right on the ramps, because there is some ADA. These were done 40 years ago, and so they don't meet our current standards for ADA, so we do expect some good improvements on that front. Yeah. And then a little bit closer up here, again, just want to show you the detail of what this looks like in the pedestrian level experience. We're including new tree grates to give a little bit better growth opportunity for the trees. As Shelley mentioned, we've worked with a ton of stakeholders, property owners, the DTA, so we'll continue that work as it relates to the outdoor patios that interface with our public zones there. So that's important to mention. We are also looking at, we're working with the History Museum on the lithomosaic history pieces, but we also are looking at what we can do with any brick that is removed and salvaged. Maybe that's something, an opportunity to have at the museum, or some other opportunity with the community. We can kind of, figure out something to do with those bricks that go away. So we wanted to mention that on this one. And then we are also looking at, refresh of all of our seating and bike racks and all that. So just want to flash before you this image of the new seating palette that we're looking at that we think will match well with the street. And then one thing that came up in our public process, I think has also been important to the council, is in addition to making sure we have trees that are providing cooling and shade, we also want to have structural shade as well. This is something that we're trying to do more of around the city, in our parks and in our right-of-way. We have new transit shelters that will also be on this street that are going to give bigger shade opportunities than what we have today with our transit shelters. And then these structural shades will give a little bit of color, some nice architectural aesthetic, and again, structural shade where we can't put a tree in. So we have 4 locations that we're looking at placing these right now. These will be a nice accent to the street, and then we're making sure that we're coordinating those well with the adjacent businesses. And then street trees, Councilmember Navarro mentioned that the ones that we're showing on the visuals don't look like ficus. They are not. But we did get support for the 5 trees that you see listed out here on the screen. And then it's kind of hard to make out, but we can, it's online and a little bit easier. You can scour the images online. But we basically have a lineup of where these 5 new street trees would be placed on Mill Avenue. So we're working really closely with our urban forester, Richard Adkins, our design team at J2, really great landscape architects, to identify where each particular tree grate, what street tree it has. So we're working with the 5 trees you see below, an olive hybrid tree, a smaller mastic tree, the larger red push pistache tree, Tipu tipuana, which we've been using in a lot of our streetscapes, and then finally the red push pistache. All 5 of those are much more drought tolerant and heat tolerant than the ficus that we have out there today, which are lovely, but these we think will do much better in the climate that we're in and kind of the new era, give us some seasonal color, as Richard Adkins, our urban forester, has noted. So good seasonal color and some flowering in some cases, as well as give us some ability to match trees in front of architecture where it's appropriate. We heard from some of our oldest building owners that we want to make sure that we are allowing the view of those buildings. So we're putting in maybe slender trees or smaller profile trees in front of some of those buildings to make sure that we all can enjoy those nice architectural gems in the downtown.
Really quickly, Eric, too. Councilmember Hodge has a question.
Oh, well, mine is just a statement. I just want to make sure when we get all the FICA trees, unplanted, that we give Councilmember Navarro's address and we get him over there to him right away.
I'll burn them.
I do. I do want to mention there are many, or maybe I should say just several healthy ficus that we will keep. We're going to keep as many as we can. Some of those are really identified on the legend here. So where we do have healthy ones that exist today, we will do our best to maintain those. Obviously, going through construction period, sometimes they become even more vulnerable. But we do have a replacement tree. When the ficus does reach the end of its lifespan, we have a replacement tree identified for it so that the 5 trees that you see will work in a nice rhythm, design rhythm down the street eventually. even after the FICAs go.
Just a random note too, Eric, and I know I'm going back a little bit further on the bricks, and I had talked about this when I first saw the slides. One of the things I was thinking is clearly the bricks that you talk about, the bricks that can't be reused, and I do think that it would be great to donate some to the Tempe History Museum so we could actually have them there. But I almost wondered if there would be some way to almost sell some of the remaining bricks to Tempe residents who might like to have them, but then sort of turn around and donate that money back to like a 501c3. Maybe it's the Tempe Community Council, perhaps it's the Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation, something like that. So it's not just sort of going into the general fund to be lost, but it's basically them getting a piece of our history, but then, you know, turning that money around to continue to do more good work in our community. So just an idea.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Navarro?
Yeah, I just want to say, the funny thing on that, I use my son's school in Athens, Ohio. The streets are all of brick. They're made from 1800s, but they do get stolen. But the fact is, they steal them and they engrave their initials on them to keep it. It's kind of a keepsakes type of thing when they graduate. But it would be kind of neat to, just as the mayor said, to have a program like that that might actually give back to a nonprofit or whatever it is. Kind of cool.
Great ideas, and we started talking about it, so we'll figure something out and bring it back to council.
Councilmember Garland?
I was going to say, I wrote that same thing down. Sell bricks for charity.
I promise I cannot see over to your paper. I can't do it.
We've got it all. But I was going to say, at our high school, the kids' high school, they were putting in a new basketball stadium or flooring, and they cut them into pieces, and people like us bought one for $100. And it went to the charity that the school was funding. But I still have it. It's in the garage. But I have no idea what to do with it. But bricks, I mean, I'm thinking the brick would be cool, but you need to put like a stamp on it that says, you know, Tempe Mill Avenue or just something would be really cool. But anyway, I love that idea.
Do you know how many years we can do this? Do you know how many years we could do this for?
See how many bricks we get. Yeah.
Councilmember Hodge?
Okay, so going on the bricks, is there any way that they can purchase bricks, the new ones, to put in the thing with their name on it in there? You know, I don't know if this is hard because they do it it's done at the zoo.
It's interesting. It's an idea. I mean,
Like the zoo, I think what they do is they sandblast into those pavers, into those bricks. That would be something, you know, we would, I'm sure, defer to the council on direction.
I just wonder how it would look. I mean, I totally see what Councilmember Hodge is saying, like the notion of kind of, you know, you're part of, frankly, starting the new Mill Avenue. But I do wonder about the look of it, but I'm just not sure. So, Councilmember Chin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to put my other job hat on for a minute with that. That's a tough one to maintain, especially where it's going and the wear and tear and getting the names so that they're equally visible. It's yeah.
I think it would be cool too. I mean,
No. Well, I would say, you know, let's keep it out there for an idea. You know, I mean, we have to make a decision right now.
Well, as we break ground, then we might have to revisit that.
Yeah, you come back to us.
Yeah. Good ideas. Thank you. So the next slide I wanted to share was as I mentioned, the kind of the celebration of Tempe history and the full Tempe history. At every intersection, all the corners, we're placing those large circular medallions that are made of a concrete reinforced material called lithomosaic. Holds up really well. We've been using it in different parks and other downtowns in the region. So we're really excited about that. We've been getting a ton of feedback on this. And again, trying to tell the whole story of Tempe from indigenous times to contemporary. So you'll see here, I'm not going to go through all of them, you'll see here, hopefully that whole history. So we have some images that aren't showing here because we have reached out to partners like Salt River Pima, Maricopa Indian Community to start that dialogue and get what imagery they would like to see in our downtown. We have 2 locations for that. And then we also have other images that I wanted to call out, like San Pablo Village. We have an image of that used to be, you know, an area of Tempe in our downtown at the base of the butte. We still have descendants from that community that was here that live in Tempe today. So again, these are important stories to tell, and we are excited about this element of the project and working with the History Museum to develop these.
Councilmember Garland?
I just had a quick question on those pictures. Are they going to be some in color and some in black and white like they're here, or are they going to all be gray, black and gray?
I believe we're looking for some black and white and some color.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Great.
and that's
Okay.
really just kind of depends on the image
Yeah,
and
that's
the
great.
era.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then finally, as Shelley mentioned, the overview of the project is we're trying to, move the needle on how we're designing our infrastructure in the city, streets included. And so integration of sustainability practices into our infrastructure is important. So one of the big things we're doing here is what we call the Silva Cell system. Again, we're working with our design team and Richard Adkins, our urban forester. This really is a water harvesting technology, and it really is about health of the tree and really having trees that live their full lifespan. It helps with root stability and support for the tree. So we are doing this for most of the locations along the street. And again, it's an integration of a sustainability practice, kind of a new technology in green infrastructure that we're bringing into Mill Avenue, and really optimistic about it. With that, I think we're handing over to Shelley to close it out.
Thanks, Eric. So we know that communication doesn't stop at this point, so we've identified some techniques and tools to continue that communication with the businesses who we know this will impact as we move through construction. So one-on-one stakeholder discussions, making sure that we have coordinated and consistent messaging. Our contractor, Aiken Gardner, will have an open door access, so if there's questions that come up along the way, they'll be able to answer them. Important of maintenance of public services and access, so we're working through details like that. Coordination with downtown events. We know that this is the heart of the downtown. This is where we hold many events, and so we're working closely with DTA on that. And then signage and the various communication techniques that we use on all of our projects. And finally, our construction timeline. So mentioning the events, we've worked with DTA to look at what events will be happening in February and doing some different, we'll be continuing to move towards construction. Sorry.
We were told to speak into the microphone.
Okay. So we will be working on blue staking, traffic control coordination, completion of the initial phase of potholing during March, especially while the events are occurring like Mill Avenue Festival of the Arts and spring training. And then in April, you'll see the largest piece of the construction start, and that will be at University and Mill. So that entire intersection will be, the pavers will be removed. We will be repaving it with asphalt. The corners will be done. So you'll see a lot of construction starting in April and moving forward. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Councilmember Garwood?
Thank you. I think when you had put together another presentation for us, I'd mentioned how great it would be for us to try to do a website, a location on our City of Tempe website that people can go into and can click and they can see the plan, see where we're at. You guys could be putting in current photos. One place where we as council members or anybody else can say, well, if you want some of the details, it's going to just go to tempe.gov/mill landscape, whatever you want to put. But I think, again, it's open communication and allows other people to be able to look at those documents and that information and be able to see the progress of it. And that would just, I think, help us out so much with people who are concerned about when it's going to get done or what they're doing.
Definitely. We'll work with Chris and Shauna to make sure that we have updated information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro, then Councilmember Chin.
You're gonna hate me, but
we don't hate you. We love you.
I brought this up many times. The bollards. What about the potential of bollards still being placed or having the infrastructure ready to go on certain streets? I know we've chatted about this a long time. But is that something that still could be possible, just since we're doing the construction? So if you think about different types of bollards on 6th, 7th Street, if we do closures, yes, I know the larger potential of, high-tech bollards on Mill on both ends. I'm just throwing that out there. I know that's a cost that's not anticipated, but at the same time, maybe on some of those side streets, the infrastructure to place bollards in hopes to not use gaudy traffic, water closure stuff, things like that.
Yep.
It's very European.
What I would say is a great suggestion. I would want us to circle back with DTA and get a full understanding of, you're talking for major events and we have Mill Avenue closed down, like for Arts Festival, being able to engage those. I know that, Shelley was involved years ago. There's been a lot of iterations of when and how we do our closures and whether permanent bollards in the street is something that we should look at. So we can bring it back and have a quick conversation. We're finalizing the plans for the project. They're coming next Friday. So we'll try to hurry up and have that dialogue.
Hurry up.
Yeah.
I mean, and the only thing I'm bringing up, I mean, what a beautiful thing we're doing is downtown. I mean, we're really making the appearance look good, and it's just going that extra mile especially when you do, I believe a lot of people have traveled Europe or wherever like that. It's such a clean separation, knowing that you're in the street, tables, whatnot, and it can close down with the safety of the bollards there. And I know we've had discussion on this on various levels about, what else is needed, but I would love to still get around those things and make sure that we can still have that access to bollards.
We'll look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chin?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I feel I'm excited about it, and I feel like I can really visualize it now. And you never once used the word festoon as in festoon lighting, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. I want to underscore Councilmember Garland's point, because as we talk about construction, as it begins to occur, we know there will be some disruption it's going to slow some people down or cause people to take a different route than it will inconvenience people. So I have always been a fan of, well, let's communicate and let's share the vision. So an opportunity for people to see what you just shared with us of what it's going to be. I think that allows people the opportunity to perhaps be a little more patient, or, oh yeah, I get it. It's going to be really cool here, but we have to get through this. And people are reasonable and will understand that. So I just wanted to underscore her point on why that's important.
Thank you. I think, and Shelley may have mentioned this, one thing to note too is that the contractor, Aiken Gardner, is going to have a downtown Tempe at the transportation center, their offices, and that'll be a place where business owners, public can come in and have conversations too. And so maybe like the boards that we had for the open house could be there on site and displayed, possibly for that kind of casual viewing of the project as well.
Great. I was thinking, as people are driving by or have to detour to a different way, where they can then look it up. If they're talking to one of us, we can say, oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Go here, see what the vision is.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hodge?
Sorry. My question is more about just the businesses. I know that they've heard the preliminary of it. Are they going to go through, are you going to take them through piece by bit so they can make sure they understand the process as it goes throughout the whole time? Like take them through like I consider like a road show to it for them. I'm just curious on that.
Yeah, definitely. We will be reaching out to them, and the plan at this point is to move up the east side of Fifth Street, or Mill Avenue to Fifth Street, move over to the west. So as the progression takes place, we'll be reaching out to them to let them know what they will be expecting, what the impacts are, and ahead of time as well. We're working very closely with Lori, with DTA, and just making sure that we're getting that information out to them.
We're going to lean on DTA. Sorry, Lori. She's here.
She's there. She's in the back.
And our contractor has been already making individualized reaching out to folks. And we know it's important. We've been talking about how do you keep a business open while you're doing construction, like just getting to the front door if bricks are being replaced, in front of their business. So we're talking about some overnight work where you keep the front door open in the daytime, and then overnight maybe you do the replacement right in front of the door. So all that kind of customized construction outreach and techniques are being looked at.
Thank you. I just saw that kind of happen with the light rail, and so many businesses lost their business because I don't think it was enough information helped out throughout that time when it was not our light rail, not our part. Talk about in Mesa, but it was not in ours. But I saw a lot of businesses close down in Mesa because of that situation. So I just want to make sure that we're conscious about that when we're doing it in our area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Anything else? I just want to say, Lori as well. The good thing is that they mentioned you while you were here. Many times people volunteer things for people when they're actually not present in the room. So the fact that they did is very upstanding of them. So, but I'm looking forward to the project. It's obviously, it's a long time coming, and I know it's something that I talk about all the time, but I'll say it again, I'm to the probably behest of my colleagues that, as much as people talk about the downtown and a lot of the focus on it, quite honestly, the downtown really hasn't had a full-scale refresh since the late 80s. And so really it's been about roughly 35 years or so. And frankly, it's time to really, probably almost 40 years. So it's frankly time, given the competition we have from a lot of other surrounding downtowns, to make sure that our downtown truly is keeping up when it comes to not just simply the establishments of the downtown, but clearly the built environment and the look and feel. And so I think this is going to be tremendous. I'm glad you got a great reception back from members of the community. And obviously you're getting a great reception back from council about the direction. So go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Brings us to item 3C, Quarterly Capital Improvement Program Construction Update. Julian.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Julian Dresang, City Engineer. Thank you for having me. This is ongoing capital improvement program updates. We started doing this last year, and it's something that we got good feedback and we think is worth continuing. So I'm excited to share 10 projects with you tonight. But as I get started, I always like to point out some of the performance measures that relate to what we're working on. I probably could list just about every single performance measure that we have because our capital program in some fashion touches upon all those. So this list definitely is not comprehensive, but does have some things like feeling of safety in your neighborhood. So when we work with our parks and such, drinking water, I'll share some projects today that we're working on in that regard. ADA transition plan, 20-minute city, some of our transportation programs. So again, our performance measures touch upon all these projects. I want to take a quick opportunity to just put some face and names with some of my team that works daily on these projects. So this is the management team that delivers our capital program. Greg Kent, he's a professional engineer and oversees our planning and design group. Barrett Yergemeyer, who's also a professional engineer. He oversees our construction delivery. And then Jennifer Svedichin, whose team does all the contracts that make sure that these programs move forward. So if you see any of these, please say hi. Here's some data similar to what I provided in the past. So we currently have 137 active projects in varying stages, 28 of them in study, 3 in pre-construction, 35 in design, and 71 in construction. And so when we look at the pie graph on the right, you can see we have about 25% in that early study pre-construction phase, another about quarter in the design phase, and then the remaining half in construction. And I think this is a really good distribution of our projects. And as you can imagine, as construction projects kind of fall off, we bring in new planning and design projects. And so I think it's a really good representation of just where our program is. To deliver those, I mentioned Jen and her team, 257 contracts that we're actively working on just to make sure these projects move forward. And then we have 19 pending that our client departments have shared with us as projects that they want to begin, and we're beginning to move those into the design process. So I have 10 projects that I'm going to briefly touch upon. The first one is our North Tempe Water Replacement Project. This is an important project to replace aging infrastructure in the city. It's in our water program. We're actually finalizing construction on this project, so we've been working on this since June. The bulk of the project is north of the 202, but also incorporated portions of Maple Ash neighborhood, which you can see on that bottom right photo. The project is actually under budget, and so even though the bulk of the project is going to be done this month, we're going to use some of those remaining funds to actually add on a little bit of additional work and replace some additional pipelines in the neighborhoods, nothing on any of the major streets, but that will extend the program into June 2024. But the bulk of the work is got done on time, under budget, and we want to use those funds to just replace some additional pipeline. The next project is our Fire Medical Rescue Station number 2. This project is located on Hardy, just north of Southern. This is, I think I've shared this with you before, but this is a really unique project because we're maintaining operations at the same time we're rebuilding this facility. So it's an aging facility. So we've broken it into 2 phases. So we're running operations out of the north building. We've demoed the south one. We're building that, and that's phase 1. And then we will be moving operations over into the new building, demoing the north half, and then building that up. And so even though the project is showing a completion date in November 2025, we anticipate that first phase being done earlier. And if we do an open house, it'll probably be when that first phase is done. And you can see some of the pictures here. We've got our masonry up. We're starting to put steel out there, and so it's really coming together. And so hopefully you've had a chance to drive by there, but really a unique project, an exciting project, and looking forward to completing that one. This next project is the Smith Road bicycle connectivity project, and so this is connecting our community. So we've heard from the community that there's a need for bicycle pedestrian connection between Apache and Rio Salado, and so we've worked on this project for quite some time, and it's exciting to get to the point where we're actually under construction. So it's divided into 2 phases. We have the north phase, which is between Rio Salado and University, and then the south phase between University and Apache. And so we started construction last month. You can see some of the photos there at the bottom, removing curbing and putting in sidewalks, putting in the trench and conduit for lighting. And so we anticipate this initial stage to be done in May of this year. And then we're working with our CMAR contractor to get pricing and schedule to begin construction of the southern phase in beginning this summer, and with the intention to get done by winter of this year. The next project is a transit-funded project. This is our Country Club Way shared use path. This is another project that is actively under construction, began last month. This is a connection that will go from Warner on the south up to the US 60, kind of on the Country Club Way alignment. Some of it's new along the west side of the ASU Research Park as new path, whereas north of there, it's improvements along the existing street network. And construction again began last year, and we anticipate a completion date of October of this year. The granular activated carbon system, this is an important project at the Johnny G. Martinez water plant. This is important for us to meet our current and future regulatory requirements as it relates to water quality. And so this is a heavy investment. It's a large project that started last year and will go all the way through March of 2027. We're in the very preliminary stages of that. You can see on the bottom we're putting in bypass pumping and exposing utilities. But this is just really important to make sure that our residents are getting the best water possible and that we're meeting those regulatory requirements. We all know the importance of our pavement quality and our PQI to our neighbors, our neighborhoods, our residents, our businesses, and so this is another project that we've started. This is in the Lakes community, so this is south of Baseline, east of Rural. We always start first with the concrete improvements. So on the photos here, you can see that we're putting in upgraded ADA ramps that meet the ADA requirements for the pedestrian side of our projects. And then after that, we come in with the paving. So you can see in these pictures the need for this investment. And so another important project, we started this one in December with the concrete work and anticipate the project to be done in August of this year. Here's another project that we've discussed in the past. This is a North Tempe storm drain project. This is a partnership between the City of Tempe, City of Scottsdale, and the Flood Control District of Maricopa County. This is in the north part of the city. Water flows from the north south to the river, and so we do at times under heavy rainfall get flooding in this area, and so this project will capture that water as it comes south and take it east to the Indian Bend Wash. And so really excited to have movement on this one. We have actually a neighborhood meeting on February 20th at the North Multi-Gen Center. Anybody that's interested is welcome to attend that meeting. And we anticipate construction on this important project to begin in fall of this year. Another pathway project, this is one that's been on the books for quite some time, and we're excited to actually get this one built. This is the 8th Street Shared Use Path. This goes from rural to McClintock. We had some delays because we actually found some historical ruins there from our previous, from our ancestors and such, and so you can see a photo there on the south, and we're actually incorporating that into this project with some of the design elements, with some of the landscaping, with some of the signage and such, because it's so important and such an important part of this. So that you'll see that in that design. We are finalizing the design of that, and we're anticipating construction in fall of this year. Another project, if you've been around the downtown and around City Hall, you've heard this project and seen this taking place. There's actually 2 projects that are part of this. This is HVAC and deck replacement. So this is really aging infrastructure going in and bringing it up. The facility was built many years ago, and it's reached its time for those changes. So it's a phased project. The west garden level HVAC work is actually done. We started that in April of last year and finished last month. And so now we have switched, and we're doing the construction there on the east side. And so if you're looking for some of planning and building safety and those business opportunities, those are now shifted over to the west side. And so if you see anybody wandering around looking for that, they're over in where engineering is. And for the deck work, we just finished up most of the work on the west side, and we're shifting over to the east side. So again, the deck work helps to deal with any kind of water penetration into the deck, which then ultimately ends up in the areas underneath. So very important project. We anticipate the deck work to be done in November of this year, and then the east garden level HVAC work in December of this year. And you can see some photos on the bottom there of the HVAC work and the decking. And finally, a project that we've been working on for quite some time and are reaching the end is the Clark Park Pool, Recreation Center, and Park Improvements Project. This is a Fund 63 Parks project, and excited to say that we had a soft opening for the community center. So there are recreation classes taking place in that facility, and we are finalizing commissioning of the pool, working with our aquatic staff to train lifeguards and have them ready for an opening in April, and hope to see the community be able to enjoy this facility into the summer and beyond. And so the photo on the bottom left, you can see the rec center, really unique opportunity to incorporate mosaic art into the entrance there. And on the right, you can see the swimming pool with the pool slide in the background. And it's easy for me to see, envision just all of our residents enjoying that facility. So excited to get to be, I know this is a project that we've been waiting on, and exciting to see it come to completion. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments. I always put this out there. If there's an interest in touring this or any of the other projects that were on the list that was provided, happy to make that happen. And then our next update is scheduled for June 20th of this year.
Wonderful, Julian. Thank you so much for the presentation. Any members of council have any comments or questions? So Councilmember Hodge just wants a tour of all of it, or?
Well, as much as you want to give me.
Oh, okay.
All of them.
I was just checking, so. All right, 10 tours for Councilmember Hodge coming right up.
Coming right up.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, Julian. Appreciate it. Great job. Wonderful. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 3D, General Obligation Bond Program, Affordable Housing and Historic Preservation. Tom Dunsing, Tim Birch. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tom Dunsing, Chief Deputy City Manager, joined on my right by Mr. Tim Birch, the Director of Community Health and Human Services. And the reason we're here tonight is we were directed at the December 5th, 2023 work study session to go out and basically come back to facilitate a discussion to address affordable housing. And that's what we'll be doing in the next few slides. We also were directed to evaluate our historic properties program that we have currently in our CIP. And pleased to come back and let the council know that our investments that we will propose in this upcoming CIP have increased quite substantially for our historic properties. And again, I'll get into that a little bit. We are looking for direction tonight. And the direction is whether or not we proceed forward with our affordable housing program as we're going to outline in the CIP. And you'll get the first look at that in 2 weeks on February 22nd, and whether or not we keep the historic properties CIP projects that we're going to outline for you in the CIP that you'll see in 2 weeks. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Birch.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You'll see the council priorities on your screen. We believe this addresses obviously ending homelessness, our community health and well-being, as well as an opportunity to increase our housing inventory ratio. On the screen in bright colored blocks, I think it's important as we start talking about accelerating our investments that we review the investments you have already made as City Council in this space. Our city investments, you'll see highlighted our transitional bridge housing, over $20 million of investment on purchasing, maintaining, and running our bridge shelters. Rental assistance programs, our housing choice vouchers, our veteran assistance, our family reunification voucher programs, our federal dollars allocated there, over $18 million. Our Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing, over $15 million in pledges made to the Hometown for All. Down below that in the orange block, $3.6 million collected to date on those pledges as well. Upper right hand, $9.1 million in fees captured through Hometown for All and directed toward our affordable housing affiliate for the maintenance and building of affordable housing. We also bring to that the direction of our community development block grants, our home, our ESG, and our federal pass-through dollars to the tune of $3 million, as well as the ongoing budget of $1.2 million for our homeless solutions and $1.2 million in agency review dollars that go out to nonprofits to help individuals get into housing, stay into housing, and gain those skill sets. It's important to understand that this mix is federal directed fees and general fund obligations already made on behalf of this council. This represents over $72 million in effort going toward ensuring that individuals have access to quality housing to keep them off of the streets, all the way from the street outreach encounter to transitional housing through first-time home ownership buying programs. Acceleration would look like doubling down on those efforts and leaning into what works well. In that, we have examples of projects like La Victoria Commons, where the affiliate has said we can bring the land to the project and partner with a nonprofit developer, 125 units of affordable housing on deck in that unit. We have other approaches such as Apache Central Center and projects we're currently exploring in other parts of the city where we braid funding with other providers here from the city, be it general fund or other type of federal development tax credits, where we are bringing on over 400 units at Apache Central Development. 50% of those, or 200 units, will be affordable housing. Additional approaches include development agreements, where we go to developers that are bringing market rate housing, such as the Array on Apache, where we went in with development agreements and said, look, if we can lean in and provide you some financing opportunity here, can you bring on some affordable, low and moderate income units? And they did. So there's multiple array of approaches, and the goal here is to lean in and accelerate those. We propose leveraging this through the general obligation bond process to help us make sure we don't miss opportunity. There's not a week goes by where someone does not call and say, hey, have you seen that spot of land that's just gone up for sale? And we don't have the opportunity to have the liquid capital on hand to go out and compete with a private developer to bring that land into the land bank and gear it up and get it ready for development. And that's what this would do for us and accelerate the goal of bringing those units online.
Thanks, Tim. So members of council, let's talk about the financing of this. What we have proposed is basically a $32 million bond program over 4 years. That's in addition to the $72 million that you saw on the previous slide. So a significant increase in the city's investment for this effort. What we propose to do is issue general obligation bonds, and if directed by council, we will bring back a CIP project for $8 million per year over 4 years to be utilized consistent with what Mr. Birch laid out in the previous slide. I want to be very clear that these bonds are paid over 20 years. I've had questions from the public saying it's going to be decades. It's not decades, it's 20 years. 20 years. We don't issue debt for any longer than 20 years. This is no different. And the timing of this could be a little bit different, but what you will see is, if directed, you will see a CIP project with $8 million per year, beginning in fiscal 24-25 over the next and 3 subsequent years following that.
Tom, I have a quick question, actually. So you're recommending $32 million, right? $8 million over every year for the next 4 years. So one of the things I wanted to see if we could talk about to the folks in the audience and to the residents watching at home. So there are going to be some people who are going to say, so Phoenix had a $500 million GO bond this past November, and their bond for affordable housing was $63 million. And so the city of Tempe is doing $32 million. But obviously, there's a difference in the size of our cities and the populations. We're about 194,000. They're the 5th largest city in the country from a population standpoint. So can you talk about how far that $32 million gets us as opposed to, and it's not to compare us to the city of Phoenix, but I can just see some residents potentially making that comparison. So if you could contextualize that, that would be very helpful.
Certainly, Mayor, thank you for the question. Obviously, $32 million is less than $63 million. Talked to the city manager about this, and we actually did some math on this. And the equivalent $32 million in Phoenix, if they were to invest the equivalent amount, Phoenix would have to invest $263 million. Phoenix is almost 9 times the size of Tempe. And so as proportionate or per capita, or however you want to talk about it, it is a significant investment in this city. And we intend to get it on a ballot, and I'll talk about the ballot question in just a moment. And as a separate ballot question, really, it's consistent with how Tempe approached it, and we thought that was pretty prudent. And depending on council direction, we may approach it that way as well. So I appreciate that question, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember DeVore?
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate that. Actually, thank you, Tom. I mean, this is actually great information. But to add on to that, whether cities are bonding for affordable housing presently, or have you heard?
Can you repeat that question, Councilmember?
What other cities are actually doing the same thing, bonding, besides Phoenix and Tempe? Because this
Got
is
it.
a regional approach, right? We're talking about affordable housing, and as a region, Tempe can't be the lone wolf, and Phoenix on top of that too, with various other things. Phoenix has been the forefront of housing for homelessness, So with that said, regionally, are you hearing anything else out there that other cities are doing?
No, Councilmember, thanks for the question. The only other cities I'm aware of, other than Phoenix, and if we get direction, Tempe, will be the city of Flagstaff, that are looking to a GO bond question to fund affordable housing. Now, there may be elements of affordable housing. Clearly, Tempe's had elements of affordable housing throughout the years. But as far as a GO bond program, it's just Phoenix and Flagstaff that I'm aware of. In consultation with our bond attorneys, they're actually still kind of figuring their way through this. It's very regulated on what these projects can actually look like. And so, again, we are at the forefront of this. So thank you.
That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick thing too, just to make sure I'm, clear, my question too. I applaud the city of Phoenix for what they did. I think it's a very responsible thing to do, to invest additional dollars into affordable housing. It's just a matter of wanting to make sure that we're having a full apples to apples comparison. So I appreciate you, Tom, talking about that in a little bit more depth. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mayor and Council, if I could switch gears just a little bit. In this upcoming November GO bond election, we do intend to include historic preservation in it, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences of this particular program versus the affordable housing program. So historic preservation, we've had elements of historic preservation in our CIP already. And those elements were basically in our current GO bond plan. And so the bottom line of that, if you recall PQI, we brought a program up that really stacked PQI on top of our existing program. Well, that existing program already includes historic preservation. So the sort of the conclusion is the historic preservation projects that you're going to see will have no property tax impact. They're already included in there. We had to go to work. Finance staff had to kind of figure out how much could we actually squeeze into the CIP, and you're going to see those numbers here in a slide or two. And really, the reason why we were able to fit it in is the development that you see in Tempe. When we develop, we get additional properties on the rolls, which gives us a little bit more flexibility. And a little bit more flexibility, we're able to make additional investments in the community. So here's just a quick snapshot. The current CIP that we adopted just a little bit less than a year ago had historic preservation projects totaling about 3.3. We reached out, worked with Dr. Zachary Lechner to get priorities, went to with finance staff to see can we squeeze anything more in our current bond program. And what you're going to see in 2 weeks are historic preservation property CIP requests totaling $12.3 million. That's an increase of $9 million. I call that substantial. We'll review it in 2 weeks, and again, we'll get feedback from council either tonight or in 2 weeks when you can see the entire CIP package. A little bit, what I wanted to do is lay out all the historic preservation CIP projects totaling the $12.3 million, and you can see them there. I'll talk just a little bit about a couple of them. The first one's Double Butte Cemetery. In the current CIP, the Double Butte Cemetery is roughly about $350,000 over the 5-year period. We were really able to lean into it, and so what we are going to be proposing, and you'll see, is a CIP project of $2.9 million. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Jerry Brock Foundation has graciously offered to fund a match of up to $1 million. And so there's really good stuff that we're going to be able to do at Double Butte Cemetery. Historic Properties Building Maintenance, you can see just a little bit less than $2.1 million. The city owns a number of historic properties, and the idea behind that CIP projects is for us to really lean in and do the maintenance and refurbishments that those properties really deserve. And finally, historic property acquisition. And the intent on that CIP is to have funding set aside for not only the acquisition of historic properties, it would be city acquisition of certain historic properties. We can also, the way the project's laid out, is rehabilitate those projects or those properties that Tempe acquires.
I'll say, Tom, really quickly too, I love the fact that there's a list of all of the projects just from a public transparency standpoint. When people ask, what are you actually spending this money on, you can actually go line by line and show them exactly where it is. The other thing I was going to ask you too is, to my understanding, is also that you worked with members of our community to actually put together this list. So when people talk about community and citizen participation, this was not a list that you and Tim were sitting around, or even Dr. Lecter, and putting it together by yourselves. You were actually consulting with very well-respected members of the historic preservation community to actually put this list together, if I'm understanding.
That's correct, and there's been a council communicator on support, and really thank you to Mayor and Council and encouraging support for this. So thank you for mentioning that, Mayor.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So I'm going to switch gears back to affordable housing. As you know, the proposal is to stack the $32 million on top of the current GEO bond program. And the real intent for that, the intent of that is not to impact the current CIP that we have. Julian Dersang came up here and kind of overviewed all the different projects that we do to maintain, to beautify. And so the idea behind this is, in addition to those, what does an additional $32 million mean for our public? I'm going to focus on the bar chart on the left for just a moment. What that is the Tempe portion of a property tax bill for the median household. So currently, the median household pays $443 per year to the city of Tempe. It represents a very small portion of the total property tax bill, but Tempe's portion is $443. If we get direction from council to include this $32 million, basically what that means is an additional $19 per year for the median household to fund this program. And so if you stack that on top of PQI, it's an additional $100 a year. But let me be clear, it's not going to be $100 a year at one time. These are going to be issued over a period of approximately 4 years. It will phase into that $100. And again, half the properties will be lower because it's the median, half the properties will be higher. But the bar chart on the right is really what I consider the fair look at that. Every year, the Municipal Budget Office puts together a cost of service report. And basically, the cost of service is how much does the typical household pay Tempe in terms of property tax, sales tax, utility bills, and things like that. And so what you'll see is the line, the $443 points to the chart on the right, is stacked on top of the total costs of those other things, utility bills, sales taxes. And so you can see the typical median family home pays $2,361 to the city of Tempe. If we get direction to proceed forward to this, that would increase from $2,361 by $100 to $2,461. And again, I just want to be clear, it's not going to be all at once. It's going to be over a period of 4 years. We will phase into that $100. We're not going to issue the bonds all at once. We'll issue them over a period of 4 years. Let's talk a little bit about the ballot. You've seen this a time or two at these presentations, and the box on the left really shows what historically how we have put together ballot questions. And what we have done is we have collapsed some of those in a series of 3 ballot questions. This is just a concept. That's why it says concept, and it is not final. That's why it says not final. But we'll be coming back to council on probably in March to get a little bit better direction on how we kind of put together the bond questions that the public will see in the November 2023 GO bond election. And so you'll see affordable housing really will go up. The intent here under my concept that I penciled on this chart would go up and be a completely separate question, consistent with how the city of Phoenix had theirs. We would have historic properties included with park improvements, a bond question that would read improve the quality of life, and finally public safety, streets, and our PQI acceleration program that we've received direction on would go and be a bond question of enhanced community safety and roadways. Again, this is just me putting this together. We'll come back and discuss this and get direction from council on this. Finally, I just want to put it in context of dollars. These dollars will change. Again, this is the 3-question concept. And I put dollars in here just to give the council an idea of the magnitude of what we're looking like. These numbers will change as we go through the CIP process, but they're going to be relatively in the ballpark. Again, I hesitate to put numbers on this but I just wanted to show council the magnitude of what we're looking at in the November 2023 bond authorization election. Finally, the election dates. We anticipate a bond committee being formed. We've had discussions. We anticipated it in January, but we still have plenty of time. We're going to come back on March 25th, review the initial CIP. You're going to get a first look at it in 2 weeks on February 22nd, but we'll come back and we will have a city manager's recommended CIP March 25th. We again have another chance to review that on April 18th. On April 25th is the council call for election at the regular council meeting. We anticipate publicity pamphlet being mailed October 1st with the GO bond authorization election at the general election on November 5th, 2024. I think I said 2023, but 2024. And with that, I think that's it, and be certainly happy to answer any questions. And again, we're looking for direction on the $32 million, simply to include it in the CIP, which you'll get the first look at in 2 weeks. And if there's any concerns on the historic properties, be happy to hear those as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Councilmember Garland?
I'm in support of all of it. I think this is a great presentation, and you know, we're doing exactly what our residents want us to do. They want us to come up with affordable housing. They want us to have more housing in the city of Tempe. And this outlines one other way that we're going to be able to do this. So I think this is really smart. The other part is the historic preservation. And you're right. I mean, there's a couple places that I can think of right now that if we had the money and if it goes up for sale, I'd want us to try to grab those. I won't say them out in public, but I can tell you later. But I think this is, again, being able to have that money in our back pocket so they're ready to do that when we can. And I was looking at, you know, it's the change is like $100 more a year that a medium family will be, if the increase would be, I think is what you were saying. It's $8.33 a month. And I think what we will be able to do to increase our housing and also be able to really pay attention to our historic preservation, I mean, it's worth a Starbucks. It is. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Keating and then Hodge, were you? Okay, all right. That's why. I don't want anyone fighting up here. So Councilmember Hodge, you go for then Councilmember Keating.
Yep. Yeah, Doreen, you should make sure you don't, because you see what he did with my baby. Yeah. Okay. So I just want to say, yes, I definitely want to go in that direction. And I was going to just echo everything that Councilmember Garland said. We need as much tools in our toolbox when it comes to affordable housing and hitting that housing crisis that we can. It's going to definitely help with when they talk about preserving parts of Tempe and actually doing keeping that balance. I think when we put this together, that is a great consideration of a balance between it, you know, that we are preserving, at the same time we are building to make sure we have a future to go into and also take care of our most vulnerable part of our population when we talk about affordable housing. So I am so for it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Keating.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Very well laid out. I think it's very clear to the public that, you know, a lot of people are asking a lot of questions about it. And I think what you've laid out here is like kind of very matter of fact. These are the steps. This is what's going to be happening, when and where. And I think that's really important as we move forward. He answered some questions that I had, frankly. So obviously I'm in support of all of it. Let's put them. I love how you're breaking up the questions. I think that's important as well. You know, I think this is something that I would urge Tempeans to take a serious look at. I will certainly be voting for it, and I hope that all three propositions ended up passing in November, should we go down that route. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember DeVar?
No, thank you, Mayor. And Tom, to what you explained in the slides with the charts, the graphs, I think that's instrumental in letting people know where do we stand across the valley in terms of what we're getting for services within Tempe and what we're providing. Because I think when you show that totality of things that we do as a city compared to other things that cities do, you know, that paints that picture, you know, where we're at. And also it paints a picture on what we're trying to do and achieve in Tempe. So I think the message has to be clear on that. I support this and how we're going, but I think you're gonna have residents out there that are gonna be questioning, you know, what are we doing and why are we doing and what does that mean to me and my property and the values that are increasing, how that is gonna be done too. So I think we need to be prepared for that, just so that we have questions on that going forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Chin?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both so much. Once again, you've presented a very complex decision or series of decisions in a way that I found that I could understand easily. So I often tell people that many of the discussions and decisions that we make are intentional and include the consideration of Tempeans, both past, present, and future. And what you've presented and what we're trying to do here seems to capture that, that we honor past, present, and future residents. And in a way that also reflects what we have heard both from all of our stakeholders about our priorities in our community. And I'm really looking forward to the deeper dives and the discussion that you'll bring. And I encourage people that want to learn more and better understand it to attend and participate in the forums and meetings that we'll have.
Sounds good. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, no, I'm in complete support as well for all the reasons my colleague said, so I don't need to add any more, but thank you. This is great work and looking forward to this moving forward.
All right, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item was item number 4, call to the audience. We don't have anything here for that this evening, so I'm going to move on to item number 5, which is committee of the whole. There are no items ready for city council direction or status update, but we have item 5B here, council committees in progress, updates as needed. Are there any updates from the council members on items 5B1, 5B2, or 5B3? Councilmember Chin?
Mayor, just a reminder that our Sustainability and Economic Vitality Committee will meet here tomorrow at 1.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none, item number 6A, future issue review session agenda items. Council members may request that an agenda item be added to a future issue review session, but in accordance with the open meeting law, there should be no discussion on the item other than to clarify the request. Would any council members like to add an agenda item to a future issue review session? Councilmember Garwood.
I don't have one to add, except for the fact that I'd mentioned it at another work study, and it's not on this future item list. And it was about something from our code compliance department, or what are we doing about abandoned homes in neighborhoods or homes that have burned? And what are we doing with those? I don't see it on the list of future or requested presentations.
I'm not sure why it's not on there, but we'll check. We have definitely already had conversations about abandoned properties, so I know that we're working, the staff is working on it.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you, Councilmember Gardner.
Mr. Mayor and
Thank you.
Madam City Manager, it's actually update on vacant properties scheduled for March 14th.
March 14th, update.
The
Oh,
last
update
item.
vacant properties. You're right, it's there. I'm very sorry. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you. Any other council members, any future agenda items? All right. Seeing none, I'll move on to item number 7, announcements from the mayor and or city manager. I don't have any announcements this evening. Madam City Manager?
No, thank you, Mayor. No announcements tonight.
All right, then that brings us to item number 8, which is adjournment. The next regular scheduled work study session is for February 22nd, 2024. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.